Hello and welcome to another session of Let's Get Real with Mona, where we're talking about people and stories while sharing inspiration, where people, real people, are making real change in their lives and the lives of others. Now, as you know, we are in November, and November's theme is Say Yes to New Possibilities. Now, my guest today, the amazing, the beautiful Mia von Shah, will tell you about what saying yes has allowed her to experience all over the world and what she gets to do now as well. So Mia, thank you for being here with us today. I'm so glad you said yes.
Thanks for having me. Very happy to be here.
Exactly. And Mia, we used to have these Saturday sessions, right? As DeMartini method facilitators, we used to have these Saturday sessions where we used to expand our consciousness, expand ourselves in ways that, when I think about it now, those were some of the most memorable times in my past years. How was it for you, Mia?
Yes, absolutely. It was the same for me. It's always nice to have other people just to challenge you a bit.
Yes.
We can be a little bit complacent in our own thinking and in our own development. And then you have someone else say, hey, I'm calling you on that thing. And yeah, that's how we grow.
Exactly. And I love that because we were able to do that, right? Because we trusted each other enough to be in that space, and we knew that we had each other's back,
Yes,
right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah. And that's so important because we had some really big ideas. And I still remember you were one of the crazy people who believed me when I said certain things. And I thought, but aren't you supposed to tell me, no, that's not possible? But it was like, no, Mia's like, that's your dream. And I am here to cheer you on. And that's what I love about you, Mia.
Yes, I really believe anything's possible.
Absolutely.
You might need to extend your time frame sometimes,
Yeah.
but if you're prepared to go the distance and you're prepared to overcome the obstacles that will be in your way, then you can do anything, really.
Nicely, absolutely. So let me tell our viewers a bit about who Mia von Shah is. Well, Mia is a transformational parenting and mindfulness coach, an inspirational speaker, and an author of uplifting books for children. Yes, if you can get your hands on Mia's books, please do, especially if you're a parent of young children, because they are magical. That's all I can say about your books, Mia. They are magical. So Mia has been coaching parents and teachers from all over the world for the past 12 years, focusing on helping them to let go of their past baggage so they can live fully in the moment. Now, she has trained both in traditional therapy with a BA in psychology and a certification in trauma counseling, and in various alternative therapies, including NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, life coaching, hypnotherapy, stress biofeed, time paradigm techniques. I'm quite interested in that one, Mia, and the DeMartini method, because that's where Mia and I actually met, in the DeMartini campus, where we, well, spent some interesting times together. Do you remember those times, Mia?
Yes, very interesting.
So Mia is currently doing her master's in integrative counseling and psychotherapy for children and families. She uses a combination of methods in her practice to effect instant and lasting change in her clients. The kind of change that helps parents to be the change they want to see in their kids. Now you'll understand, and I'm going to repeat that. She helps parents to be the change they want to see in their kids. And I know that for all of us, if we want to move forward in this world, it's not about us trying to fix everything else outside of us. It's about us taking the time to look at ourselves and go deep within. So Mia, how did it come about, right? How did you come upon that to realize that, hey, if we want our children to be happy, joyful, successful, whatever it is that we want them to be, how did it come about that you realized that, hey, parents, look at yourselves first? Be that change first before you want to experience that change with your children.
Mm. You know, it's a twofold process for me. And the one side, I've done a lot of studying into children and childhood development and what's going on. And particularly my real interest is in that first relationship with the primary caregiver, usually the mother, and how that kind of attachment bond affects literally everything else that happens in your life. Um, and then on the other hand, obviously, was my own personal journey. And you know, when I had my own kids, I was absolutely a mess. I was in no way ready for them and the change that that brought about in me. And that became really my impetus for massive self-development.
Mm.
And then I could see as I changed, as I became calm, as I dropped into meditation and mindfulness, what that knock-on effect was with my kids and my family, and then obviously extends out from there as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like you say, it's extensive work, it's extensive research, it's extensive. And I guess this is it. You aren't just going out and teaching and working with clients, it's you. What better way? Through you get to test. You know, it's like a recipe. You test it, you try it out, you see what works, you see what doesn't work, and then you go out and you know what's the best recipe then to share with your clients.
Yes, but equally so, you know, if you're going to be the change you want to see in your kids, in the same way, you need to be the change you want to see in your clients,
Yeah,
because you can only take your client as far as you've gone personally.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so in that self-development,
Yeah.
you're able to create a space of acceptance,
Yeah.
because you have self-acceptance,
Mm.
and it's in a space of acceptance that we have that safe space to grow, to try out new ways of being, um, and really just to explore the full depth of who we are.
Mm. I love that. Right. So Mia, now there may be some parents out there that may be interacting with this kind of thought process, this kind of school of thinking, shall we say,
Hmm.
that we first have to be, because think about it, we've all, many of us, and many of the people who may be watching this come from the generations where it's like, nope, everything else is wrong outside of me. And my children are behaving this way or that way because that's how we were brought up.
Hmm.
We didn't have, many of us didn't have parents who were, shall we say, what we would term today as conscious parents, who knew like what could be impacting us, because we were either seen to be good or bad in
Yes.
most communities, right? So what are your thoughts about, you know, when we come from this background, many of us as parents,
Hmm.
how do we as parents process this now, this new school of thinking? Because it's not new for those of us that have been in this environment, but for those who have not yet interacted with this type of thinking and way of being or understanding.
Mm. Well, that's exactly why I work with parents,
Mm.
you know, because you have to heal that kind of developmental trauma in yourself, before you can even see the impact that it's had on you and the impact that you're having on your children. So I would have parents come to me and like, oh, can you see my child? They're a problem. And my answer always is, well, yes, I can, after I've worked with you.
Ah,
Let me work with you for, let's call it 16, 20 weeks, and we'll work on some stuff. And at the end of that, if you still want me to see your child, absolutely, I'll see your child. And of course, I've never seen any of them. It's like once the parent gets to the end of that 16 weeks, they're like, because by then they've had such radical shift within themselves that the child's behavior has shifted. Because what is behavior? It's communication. right? So the child is communicating something's not right here. And it's often hard to interpret exactly what that communication is. But when the parent changes, the behavior changes. And you know how we look at the world through a lens, you know, we're distorting and generalizing, and we're filtering the world. So we're seeing the child through our lens of what is right and what is wrong. And we got to shift the lens. And once you shift the lens, well, the world is different.
Exactly, right? Because it's about how we are looking at the world. And when we Mia, this is the type of conversations we want to be having with everybody, instead of people sitting and watching the news,
Yes.
listening to stuff out there that's constantly telling you how bad everything is. I keep saying to people, well, the reason why you're constantly seeing that is because there's some disharmony in you as well. Yes, the world will still continue, but how we choose to experience the world is all dependent on what's going on inside of us, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's perception as projection.
Yeah.
And until we work through our own stuff that's causing us to filter the world in that way, we'll continue to see those issues.
Yes.
And I mean, the world isn't good or bad, it's both. You know, there's good and bad, and there's constantly this interplay between yin and yang and chaos and order. And it depends what you're focusing on. If you see it as all bad, well, you're the one focusing only on the bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess our children are they're such a gift to us, aren't they? Because they make sure that all our shadows, that's what I've experienced, Mia, and you being the expert, well, you tell me, right? Because it's as if whatever shadow we have, because that's what the trauma or whatever it is that's sitting in our space, because sometimes some of these words people feel very challenged to accept and deal with. So let's call it shadows for now. It's as if our children were sent to us to specifically help us through that. And yes, it's painful. It's not a bed of roses.
No, I say parenting is not for sissies. You know, you better have your big girl pants on if you're going to go deal with that.
Absolutely. Because it's like they will knock on every door, or they will tap on every door that's been shut tight. Because you know how we are. We've hidden, many of us who don't want to interact with our emotions, we take it, we'd seal it, we'd probably cement it, we'd galvanize the door to it. And our kids will be knocking and knocking, trying to break it open. And that's the image I'm getting when I think about like the experience us as parents have to go through. Some parents, it's like, no, it's so far away, I do not even want to go look there. But the child will be a constant reminder of that which is required to be healed.
Yes, and that which is required to be brought out into the light.
Yes.
Like, okay, it is part of you, and it's okay that that's part of you.
Yeah, yeah. And whilst you're on that, Mia, talk a bit more about that. What is, it is part of us, but what's going on when we as parents don't want to go there? It's like, what are the things that's happening around us that we are disassociating from?
Well, we're going to set up defense mechanisms, you know, based on those kind of early childhood experiences. And there's nothing actually wrong with that, because at the time, those defense mechanisms are a means of survival.
Yes.
So they helped you to survive, they helped you to thrive even in the world, but they've just run out of their usefulness.
Yeah.
So we're running around carrying beliefs and limiting beliefs specifically, and these defenses that really were good for us, and they're not anymore. And it's just, you know, sometimes if you're just able to see that, you know, okay, that's what was going on at the time, that was useful, and then you can thank it and let it go, instead of just hanging on to it and using it as your way of interacting with the world now, where you don't need that in place for your safety and survival.
Absolutely love that, Mia, because it was necessary then. And that's why, and it served us.
Yes.
And I guess this is the type of understanding that, let's say it like it is, the average parent hasn't been exposed to.
Yeah.
You know, we become parents and then we are supposed to know how to take care of somebody else when we're still trying to figure out our own selves.
Yes.
Right? We're still trying to figure this out because, and unless you go out and you deliberately sort of empower yourself through education, through programs, whatever it is that we do to understand ourselves. And that's how we end up being, and I'm going to put it in inverted commas, you know, what people would say, good parents. It's actually being, you know, the best version of us to our kids.
Yes, I don't believe there's such a thing as a good parent. A good parent, you know, what is a good parent? A parent is something in process.
Yeah.
You know, there's no like thing that you are. You are a ever evolving process, and you're just going to continually be learning and developing and growing, whether you like it or not. Um, so so good parent to me is like we want to then solidify that into a thing that we can then define, and it just isn't, because what is a good parent one day, and that behavior that's a good parent one day is a terrible parent another day.
Yes.
um so it's too fluid to put it into a definition like that. And I think it also places a lot of guilt and stress and pressure on parents.
Yeah.
um and this is where I love, you know, some of the psychoanalysts that I'm studying now, and they talk about the good enough parent.
Ah,
And the good enough parent is like, you actually don't want to be a perfect parent,
yeah.
because if you're only giving support and no challenge,
Yeah.
then what happens? The child becomes dependent and they don't develop into their true self. So you actually do them a disservice.
Mm.
Um, so we don't want to get it right all the time. And actually, in the research that they've done and they've looked at it, they said the good enough parent gets it right about 30% of the time. That's all. And
Wow.
the rest of being a good parent or good enough parent is about repairing the ruptures. So when things go wrong, you're humble enough and secure enough in yourself to go and say, I screwed up. Okay, I'm really sorry. Let me fix it. And it's in that that the child learns the skills of being human.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Mia, it's like you've just given, and through your words, right? You've given parents permission to just be okay with who they are.
Yeah, just be. Yes.
Because I mean, we both are parents, and yes, we've had many conversations about, like, you know, the different things we've done. And I don't believe that there's that guilt because you, well, I think we've inherited that guilt from our parents as well before we knew how to shift it. Whatever they felt guilty about, now we're still carrying it as parents. But we've experienced that where you'd feel, and when you speak about that, I still think about the first time that when my son Theo was in grade 1, and I had not been there for a Mother's Day event. And when he came home, and yes, I was at work in court.
Mm.
And when he came home, he said, "You are the only mom that was not there." I had no idea. You know how that feels, right? At that time. But I had no idea. Here was this little person telling me all the other moms were there, and you were the only mom that wasn't there. I had carried that. Imagine, he was 7 years old at that time. Do you know, Mia? I had shifted it a bit a few years ago, and it was only last year that last bit is as if that hook, that last bit that was still there, like wanting to punish myself for not being there.
Mm.
Because we carry it like a badge of honor, you know, because all the other moms were so good for being there.
And yet being a good mother is also going to work, fulfilling yourself, living your dream, being an inspiration to your child, you know, and bringing in the money to feed them. And that's also part of being a good mother.
Exactly. And keeping them in private schools and stuff like that. Right?
Absolutely.
But think about it. We come from a society. It's as if a good mother must be at home, firstly, right? A
Mm.
good mother must be at home because it's like, oh, my mother was at home. So what society looked at was as if, and this is it. It's as if women must be at home, taking care of their families. And we are like, no, we want to conquer the world. We want to like do the most amazing things in the world. And then it holds us back as parents on what we do, how we show up for our own children. What would you say to that, Mia?
Well, I think, you really have to look at it on an individual basis. Is
Yeah.
some women and some men would love to be home with their children all the time, and like those women, you've met them, that like they've just always their whole life they just wanted to be a parent and they've been waiting for that. um but that's not to say that that's for everybody,
Yeah.
and it's not always the best thing for the child to
Yeah.
have a parent, particularly if the parent is a resentful parent, because they really want to be elsewhere living their truth.
Yeah.
And you and I know, if you don't follow your truth, there's all sorts of chaos that's going to come your way. Um, so it's almost like you don't have an option if raising children is not part of your truth. It's
Mm.
better to let somebody else do it where it is part of their truth.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely, a child needs a primary attachment figure,
Yeah.
definitely. And that relationship is very important, but that relationship doesn't require you to be a 24/7 parent.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. Because think about it, it's, and I guess, that's what you focus on as well as parents. It's not about the quantity of time you spend with your child, but the quality and being present, because isn't that's all, most of the time, that's all our kids want from it. That when we are there, we're there fully with them and not thinking about, okay, I'm doing this, oh, I've got to do this, but just being, and sometimes 5 minutes, even
Yeah.
sometimes even less, if we just stop, drop into our hearts and just be there with them, right?
Yes, that is absolutely the crux of it. Absolutely. And that's why I marry the mindfulness in, is and also why you've got to let go of a lot of your past baggage. Is if you're just constantly being drawn into the past and drawn into anxieties about the future, and you're not actually there.
Yeah.
If you're there, if you're present, it's not at all about what you're doing as a parent. It's
Yeah.
about being.
Yeah.
And really, that's all we're looking for, any of us, not just children, but any of us, is to connect with another human being, and be seen and be heard, and be valued just for being, and not for anything that we're doing.
Yeah. I just love that, right? And Mia, I mean, you and I are on this journey to make this world a better place for our future generations, right?
Mm.
And it's like us adults, we're so concerned about all the things going on in the world right now, and we're wondering, like, oh, how did this happen and how did that happen, and pointing and blaming whatever. But it's like, it's so easy. It's so easy. It's so simple steps for us to take, even to
Mm.
just start shifting what our children do, right? By just shifting and going and looking at our shadows, we can create the country of our dreams, like Nelson Mandela envisioned, and the
Yes.
world of our dreams, right?
Yes. But look where Nelson Mandela started. He
Yeah,
started with himself.
yeah,
So that's what it's about. If you want to change the world, you have to work on you, because how are you going to resolve conflict in a world if you can't resolve conflict within yourself? How are you going to resolve conflict in a world if you can't resolve conflict within your own family?
yes,
It's what we were talking about earlier, is like the microcosm of the macrocosm. You've got to get it right at the microcosmic level first,
yeah,
and then you can go out and influence the rest of the world.
yeah. And isn't this so true? Whilst you're working on yourself, as you said, you don't even have to see the child. Parents come to you because of their children. But like Mia, just by the way, your stats, have you ever seen a child through a parent that's come because their child was so whatever?
The only time I've actually ended up seeing the child themselves is years later when I've worked with the parent, and years later I've seen the child as a teenager,
Wow.
and they're going through massive transition and change,
Yes.
and they need some guidance going through that, and then I'll work with them. But I worked with the parent years before.
Yeah, right. Now that's proof in itself, as you say, that we work on ourselves, we end up influencing our family. And we end up influencing our family, then we end up influencing the community. If the
Yes.
community is in the right space, then we impact, the province, the state, then we go to the country. And eventually it's like this ripple effect, this butterfly effect, that as we are, the rest of the world gets to be that way as well.
Yes, because how are you going to bring love into a world if you don't have self-love? If you don't have self-love, you can't really love your children. You won't be fully present for them. And then if they don't experience love, how are they going to spread love in the world? It has to start. It starts with you, and then it spreads to your little family unit and out. And I mean, literally, we could literally change the world in one generation if
Yes.
we got it right with the parents now.
Oh, I'm having goosebumps, Mia, with that. Repeat that. We can change the world. Please say that again, because
Yes.
that's what the message is for everybody.
Yes, that we could change the world in one generation if
Yes,
we just got it right with the parents now.
absolutely. Absolutely, because that's it. The change we seek, this change we desire, the change we want to experience, the way to achieve it is simple, and everybody's looking for this complex way to go and achieve it and have, and Mia, I'm sure, we've had these discussions in the past as well. Like, people are sitting in boardrooms in these huge, get-togethers where they're trying to figure out how to bring peace in certain parts of the world, for things that have been going on for years and years and years. And it's like, can you please just go look at yourself? Can we please just have like a workshop where we ask each person to look at themselves, and then the issues, the challenges in the world will like disappear. It'll melt like butter. That's how it feels.
Yeah, I'm like, if you look at all these people in conflict all over the world, you're dealing with this broken, traumatized inner child that's fighting and fighting because that's what they had to do to survive. And now they're just going out and fighting to the world. That fight or flight system is activated all the time. So everyone that comes across them, they see as challenging and threatening, and situations are challenging and threatening, when if we could just heal that wound, then they would see the world differently.
Mm.
So look, my real interest is in preventing the wound in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, that's exactly why I'm doing my master's now, and looking at family systems and that very early childhood development. And then the plan is to work with pregnant women and women with infants, or fathers, doesn't have to be the mother,
Yes.
with infants, so that the wound doesn't happen.
Mm.
I'm like, let's just catch it, because like, prevention is definitely worthwhile.
Otherwise, we're going to keep having these generations, that's all this, like the wounding, because that's what it feels like with most of the world. We're sitting and we are holding on to this wounding as if it's a badge of honor. Right? I love using that. Saying, it's like this badge of honor, like I can't let it, I don't want to let it go. And sometimes I feel like it's because you haven't met the right person, like Mia Vancha, who will show you how to shift that. Because it is that simple. But Mia, what you're saying is so important for every parent to be.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because it's like we should actually even be taught this. And we spoke about this many years ago, about a position I was going to give you in government. Do you remember?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that as well. Yeah.
Because
Minister of Education, but it has to include social.
yes, everything, right? Because I was allocating, portfolios at that time to everybody, because this is it. if we can get it right, if we can start with the parents the people who are the adults who are to be parents now, whatever age you are, and we focus on the kids, we can deal with this. Like you say, in one generation, everything can be cleared up. And it's like it's how an epidemic spreads, right? We can have this evolution, this whole new way of being in a blink of an eye, just by us just doing and taking these simple steps of going and looking at our own trauma.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And there's a real good living example of not exactly that, but the philosophy of focusing on early development, which you can see in Finland.
Yeah.
And I mean, that country was, after the war, it was an absolute mess. They were in financial disaster, and they were like, okay, how do we rebuild a society? Where do we start rebuilding a society? And they decided to focus on pregnant women.
Yeah.
And they made sure that pregnant women had all the support they could possibly need. So they had all the right nutrition, they had all their medical needs taken care of, they had housing, and they started this project where they would give every pregnant woman a box, which could serve, the box itself could serve as a crib for the baby's first year, and it contained everything baby would need for the first year, so that there was no pressure on those families and they could get sorted. And then they moved from there. Once that was established, they moved on to that nursery school and daycare, and like, let's get that right. Let's get the best possible people in there to raise those children. And then it was the best possible teachers in the primary school. So they worked from the bottom up. They were like, forget about tertiary education. Like, let's just forget about that and let's get it right at the beginning. Because you think about a child in a deprived situation, just in terms of language usage, like a child who's coming from a deprived home compared to a child in a very advantaged home, just the amount of words that they hear and learn in their first year is so radically different that by the time they get to primary school, they're on completely different levels. And it's hard to catch that up then. So they focused in on that early development, and they just really pumped in. And you look at it now, they've got the top education system in the world, at the tertiary level, even, but it starts at the beginning. It starts with the pregnant mother. Yeah. So that society was transformed in one generation. It can be done.
Now, we've got examples of what works in the world, and yet instead of us all jumping in, for those of us that are still challenged, many places in the world, right? Instead of saying, that works in that country, let's go get the blueprint.
Yeah,
that works in that country. Let's go get that blueprint. Let's go bring all the blueprints together and say, okay, world, can we all just share and practice this so that we can live in harmony with each other?
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Wow.
And that starts with yourself.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
live in harmony with yourself. How many of us are in harmony within ourselves in the moment?
Yeah.
We're in conflict in the moment. Part of me wants this and part of me wants that, and the experience that I'm having in this moment, I'm going to reject it and I'm going to fight it. And it's like, well, what if you could just sink into it and let it be?
Yeah.
And if you can let yourself be and let your experience be, you can let your children be.
Yeah.
And then they can grow up in a different frame, with a different way of being in the world and a different way of interacting. That's not self-protective.
Yeah. Yeah. Your words were so soothing, Mia. It's as if it just transported me into, like, deep within my heart, just sunk in. It's like the whole world is going on, and I just felt like, I guess the term is bliss. It's like I'm just sitting there, it's like, yes.
And it's possible, whatever's going on.
Yeah.
It's okay. Whatever's going on doesn't have to affect your internal state. And that's the place I try to bring my clients to. And I talk about it as the bottom of the lake.
Right.
They say, on the surface of the lake, the world, it's going to change all the time. Sometimes it's going to be still and calm, and sometimes going to be choppy, and sometimes it's going to be tidal waves. And but if you can find your place at the bottom of the lake where it's always still, where you're not affected by the currents, that stuff can keep going on. It's okay. Like, let it happen, but you find your center. And if you can sit there at your center and let the world happen, let your experience happen, there's going to be chaos and drama. There's going to be difficulties. There's going to be challenges. That's part of life. And the sooner we accept that, the more easily we're going to sink to that place of stability.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's the way to live, the principles are so simple. The way to, because it's all about being. Yeah. We've spoke a bit about that. We think we have to do, but it's all about being. And I guess that's where the whole of humanity is being asked to move into. Like, stop the doing. Let's just be in that space. And I'm still in that space, Mia. You've taken me into that space, and here we're having a conversation and you've already taken me into that space. And I'm sure our viewers will also, if they were fully in present, not being distracted by anything, they would also be in that space that you've just taken me into as well. And that's how quick you weren't doing something, otherworldly or whatever. You were just speaking and you were getting me to reconnect
and
to
that
that
is
space.
power, Mona, of doing it for yourself, because then your being and your presence, you draw other people into that. And so much of the time we're in chaos, so we draw other people into our chaos, but we can also draw them into our calm. And one of the big things, I look at with children is, so they're having a temper tantrum or something. Well, don't get drawn into their chaos. You are the adult. You are the one that can bring them into your calm. So I always say the perfect time to meditate is when your child's having a tantrum. That's the best time.
Wow, I was just going to ask you about that. So what about like a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum? So please do. I was waiting for that answer.
Yeah, so everybody thinks, oh, to meditate, I need to be sitting on a mountaintop and, have this beautiful environment around me. And I would say my very best meditations have been while my children are having tantrums. And I'll just sit down next to them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, let me find that place.
Yeah.
Let me find that place. Because if you can find it with a 2-year-old screaming and smashing the floor and stuff next to you, you can find it anywhere. It's like, what is the point of meditation if it's not useful in your life? If you can't bring it into every aspect of your life, there's no point, sitting in your room with dead quiet and, you can get into this lovely blissful state, but the minute you interact with your child, you're losing the plot.
Yes.
Then, well, you may as well not bother. And I mean, I'm not saying you mustn't bother, because it is useful to do that in the quiet, so that when you need to do it in the chaos, you've had some practice. But that's the place to do it. And even you're having a difficult conversation with somebody, or you're having to deal with someone who has aggression or whatever it is in the workplace, in your relationship, if you can find that calm and you can draw people into your calm, well, then you're going to have resolution much quicker than if you've got your defenses up and you going into their chaos instead.
Wow. We have a blueprint here for world peace, right?
Yeah.
So exactly. So now viewers would understand why we were allocating portfolios for government, because can you imagine, Mia, if we can get this type of information into each country, the ones that are not practicing conscious leadership and conscious governance. Imagine if we can get this information, say, guys, can you just all just stop for a minute and just understand how simple we can turn countries around. That's why I think about South Africa. We just got to get the right people in the right places who know how to make things work, rather than creating all this other drama because we actually don't understand what we're doing.
And South Africa, unfortunately, is a really good example of childhood trauma and how that affects a whole society, because you've got generations of people who have been damaged, you
Yeah.
know, on so many different levels. And you see just the conditions that children are growing up in. And I looked around at that and I was like, this is not going to be sorted out in the next couple of generations, because those children are going to grow up with all of that pain and all of that anger, and it's just going to get projected onto the next generation and the next. And somewhere we've got to break that chain.
Yes.
Have to break it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's why, Mia, I've worked with the kids in the townships as well, right? And exactly what you say, they just want to be heard. They
Yes.
just want to be seen. They just want to be loved. They just want a hug.
Yes.
How many of these kids actually have their parents around to give them a hug? Because, if the parents are there, they're working, they're trying to put food on the table. They're trying just to keep a roof over their head or something. So as parents, they were never taught how to even, the importance of that connection with the child, right? And it's many cultures have been like that. We keep you at a distance,
And even if you understand it and understand the need for it, if you're living in a level of poverty where you've just given birth and you need to go back to work in 3 weeks,
Yeah.
you're not there to build that primary relationship, to give that child the security and attunement and everything that it needs.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying with the Finnish, they didn't do that. Women got a year of maternity leave. It's paid maternity leave.
Yeah.
The fathers get paid paternity leave, so that the
Wow.
family can come together and nourish and support. And if the father's there to support the mother, and I'm speaking, in traditional family terms, but obviously whatever the family makeup is,
Yes.
if the one parent is there to support the other parent so that they can nurture the child, it will work out.
Yeah.
But we have to facilitate that as a society.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is it. We have solutions. We have blueprints. We have answers to shift whatever is going on in the world right now. We have the wisdom, and I'm going to use that as an all-encompassing word. We have the wisdom to address this.
Yes.
And I guess, Mia, that's why we're having this conversation.
Yes.
For all the parents out there, it's understanding who we have been in our parenting journey, if we haven't yet encountered this information. And for those who are young parents, and I say young parents meaning young in the parenting business, because that's what it is. And for those who are to be future parents, it's like, these are the manuals that we should be sitting with every day. This is what we should be studying, because the answer, and I'm going to say it because it's worth repeating. It is so simple. The solutions are so simple. Yes. And we're constantly looking for, if it's not complex and complicated, maybe it's not worth looking at. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And this is it. We sit together on these platforms as women with wisdom, women who know, and this is it. We require more women like us, Mia, to speak these words of empowerment, because for too long, yes, our words have been suppressed in whatever form. And yes, through our growth, through our expansion, we've been learning to reclaim our voice, reclaim our wisdom and truth, and be able to share it more confidently. Because isn't that what mothers are? I mean, they're the house, they're that body that's housing this beautiful little soul.
Yes, yes. And even in the womb, the baby is picking up on
exactly
stuff.
Yeah.
So what is your stuff? What are you carrying? What can you put down?
Yeah. Wow, Mia, This has been so fabulous. This has been incredible. And well, before we go off, right?
Yes.
You and I spoke about this up front. Many parents want their children to be successful. They want their children to live better lives. You know, some parents just want their kids to live better lives and have enough. Because I think that's important for parents to understand as well, that if we live in a world of knowing that we have enough, but to pass that on, you know, if you want your child to be confident, you have to display that. You have to be confident, right? And the most important thing is about this money aspect. We want our kids to have, usually, to be in a better off position than us. But yet, what are we doing in this space? So, Mia, like, you know, just some words of advice to parents. Yes, you've been giving advice the whole time. But right now, I know a lot of parents are out there, they're just working for money. They're just working for money. And, you know, if you can just speak to that a bit.
You know, it's such a difficult topic, Mona, because, you know, that's again a societal thing that's been set up. And a lot of parents do genuinely have to work for money. Yeah. And I would say the best thing I could say in that situation is you have to find your joy. You have to find your purpose, even if that's in small moments. It doesn't have to be your job.
Yes.
You know, even if you can find that in small moments and connect with your children in those small moments and show them that. Yeah. Show them that there's another way. It's not just the hamster wheel of like, go to work and come home and sleep and go to work and come home and sleep. Where's the joy? What are you working towards? And, you know, that can happen over the dinner table. Mm. You're sitting and have a conversation and find out what their dreams are. Share your dreams with them. And then start taking steps towards that. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's never too late to do that. It's never too late. You can be in your 60s and you can decide, actually, I never lived my dream. I'm going to start now. And you just start taking steps. And as they see you facing your fears and facing your challenges and going for what's meaningful to you, they will shift along with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, that's just incredible, Mia. And that's just it, right? We are the examples to our children. We are the examples to everyone that's around us.
Yes.
And we are number one in all instances. And it's, I guess, saying yes to new possibilities is about saying yes to us first.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly what it's about. Say yes to you. Say yes to that. We've all got that thing within us that wants to come out, and you have to say yes to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mia, my darling, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to connect with you, if they want to work with you, how do they find you, locate you?
Yes, so the best way to do that is through my website, which is www.transformationalparenting.guru. So that's
I love that.
So transformationalparenting.guru, and that's the best place to reach me. My contact details are all on there, and anyone can get in touch. And you know, everything I kind of do is listed on there. I've got my kids' books and my online courses, and everything's there in that one space.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. And you know, if you didn't get the web address and you still want to find out how to get a hold of me, then please contact me and I'll give you the details again to contact me. Because sometimes, you know, it's like we're hearing things and it's like, oh, you had this lady on your show, but like, I can't remember now how to get in touch with her. It's like, DM me and I will put you in touch and get you in touch with Mia. So Mia, thank you for sharing this space. It's been phenomenal. I loved our chats and our time together when you were in SA, because just for our viewers to know, Mia is currently in the UK. And that was what she said yes to as well. That was a big step as well, right, Mia?
Yeah, big one.
Yeah. And I just love sharing this space with you. I loved our conversations then. And today was just a continuation of that. And I guess that's just it, right? It doesn't matter how long you may not have seen someone or been in their physical space. We can just like pick up from where we left off as if it was just the other day. Yeah, yeah. So absolutely. So thank you, Mia. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always. And remember, we still have portfolios that, we are here to fulfill. And who knows where and what that would lead to and how, because we are creating the new together in our different spaces around the world. So why not? We're still open to that. Are you still open to that, Mia?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, and now compared to when we spoke about it all those years ago, you and I are in a much different place in our own growth and evolution. So we would even be so much more equipped to be able to deal with those portfolios we spoke about. Absolutely love them. So to our viewers, thank you for watching this video. And please do let us know what resonated with you. What ahas did you have during our conversation? And like I said, if you want to reach out to Mia, yes, she is phenomenal. She has such a beautiful, gentle way of helping you to shift. You witnessed it whilst I was here with her, just having a conversation. And that's the type of person you want to be with. And like Mia says, go to someone who's actually had the experience, because they can only take their clients as far, you go to someone who can take their clients to where they want to go. So Mia's that type of person. And yes, please do reach out to her, and please do let us know in the comments what it is that you have experienced during the call today, and what spark has been awoken in you, and what have you realized about yourself as a parent, because that would be quite a bit of revelation for a lot of you, I'm sure. So until next time, ciao for now.